Okay, let's dive right in. Does anyone else feel like the spell is breaking?
That's the perfect way to phrase it.
And I want to be really, really specific about what I mean by that. Because I think we often dismiss this feeling. You say, oh, it's just getting older, or you're cynical now, or you're just tired of it all.
Right. It gets pathologized or trivialized.
Totally. And I'm not talking about your own personal little illusions. I don't mean realizing your high school crush, wasn't actually that cool, or acknowledging that you are never, ever going to use that gym membership you bought back in January.
3 Januaries ago for some of us.
Exactly. I'm talking about the big one.
Great.
The collective enchantment. The massive, invisible story that has, for as long as any of us can remember, held consensus reality together.
It's the background hum, isn't it? It's the operating system that you don't even notice is running until it starts to crash.
It's the OS.
Yeah.
Yes. And it feels like it's getting the blue screen of death. You know that feeling I'm talking about? It's like you're holding a map. A map you were given at birth. It was handed down by your parents, by your teachers, by the news anchors, the politicians, everyone. And you've been following the directions perfectly. You turn left where it says turn left. You go straight. You pay your taxes. You stand in line. You do all the things.
You play by the rules of the game.
You play by the rules. But then you look up, and the territory does not match the paper anymore. The landmarks are gone. The roads are just broken. There's a cliff where the bridge is supposed to be.
Wow. Yes.
And the weirdest, most unsettling part is you look around and you see everyone else still holding their maps, just walking in circles, pretending the roads are still there.
And that's the defining sensation of this moment. I think it's so important that we validate that sensation right away, because a key part of the spell's mechanism is to make you think you're the crazy one.
The gaslighting.
It's pure gaslighting. What you're describing, that feeling, it's distinct from just confusion or stress or, political anxiety. It is. It's an ontological shift. It's a fundamental change in the very nature of how we perceive what is real.
Ontological shift. That sounds heavy, but it feels. Yeah, it feels accurate. It has that weight. Some people are calling it the Great Unraveling. I've heard others use terms like the timeline split, or, more simply just feeling crazy. And if there's one thing we need to establish right out of the gate for this deep dive into the Lucid Journeys material, and specifically episode 43 and this whole idea of the Great Unraveling, it is this. You are not losing your mind. You are watching the spell break in real time.
That is the crucial distinction we have to make right now. The cognitive dissonance people are feeling, that low-grade hum of wrongness in the background. It's not a pathology. It's not a sign that your brain is malfunctioning. It's a valid, perfectly rational response to a massive external shift.
So it's not me, it's you.
It's not you, it's the simulation. We are witnessing the stories that organized our reality, the narratives that told us who we are, how the economy works, how we determine truth, what the future's supposed to look like. We are watching them quietly and sometimes very, very loudly just stop working.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to use this material, this guide for the Great Unraveling, and we're going to name the enchantments. We're going to put a name to the ghosts.
Because you can't navigate a glitching reality if you don't even know you're in a simulation that's breaking down.
Exactly. We have to talk about what happens when the world starts to feel like a dream that is glitching out. And more importantly, how you can become lucid inside of it. So we're asking, is this the end of the world? Or is it maybe the beginning of something else? Because when a dream starts falling apart, that's usually the moment just before you wake up.
And this connects so deeply to the previous discussions we've had here about shadow work and repeating cycles. If you remember, those dives were really about the inner territory.
Right, the personal map.
A personal map, exactly. Shadow work is about understanding the fractured self, the parts of us we disown or hide. Repeating cycles are about those emotional weather patterns we get stuck inside. But today we're at the intersection where that inner work smashes right into the outer chaos.
And it's where my stuff meets everyone else's stuff.
And the collective story you've been living inside of just suddenly stops making any sense.
And the timing, the material is really specific about this. The timing is not accidental. It points specifically to this time frame of 2025 rolling into early 2026. Okay. It makes the point that this isn't just a bad year or a rough patch. It feels like a visible, almost structural collapse in trust across every single domain you can think of.
Institutions, the economy.
Shared meaning itself. It's all up for grabs.
So the central question that we really need to wrestle with is is this just collective madness? Is the world just falling apart into random entropy? Or is this unraveling actually a doorway, an invitation into something more honest, more lucid, maybe even more real?
I like framing it as an invitation, because I have to be honest, on most days, it feels a lot more like a threat. It feels deeply unsafe. But okay, let's get into the specifics. The guide lays out what it calls 5 spells that are breaking. These are the pillars of reality that we just assumed were solid concrete, and now they look like mist. The first one is called the institutional authority spell.
This one is huge. It's the foundational belief that if it's official, it's true. For generations, certainly for the last century, this was the bedrock of social stability. We operated on what you could call a gatekeeper model.
Right.
Whether it was the major media networks, government agencies, academia, the medical establishment, the cultural assumption was that if information flowed from the top down, it had been vetted. It was accurate. It was the consensus reality.
The experts know best model. And let's be super clear. We're not saying expertise isn't real. Of course it is. I want a surgeon who knows how to do surgery. I want a pilot who knows how to fly the plane.
Of course. This isn't anti-expertise.
No. But the spell was that the institutions themselves were infallible arbiters of truth, that they had our best interests at heart, that they were fundamentally competent, and that they all agreed with each other. And that belief has it's been shattered.
It has shattered. And it's important to understand why. It didn't break because the public suddenly became less intelligent or because everyone turned into a conspiracy theorist overnight, which is often the dismissal that those same institutions use.
The classic defense.
Yeah.
You're all crazy.
Right. It broke because of conflicting signals. You simply cannot maintain a spell of authority when the authorities themselves are providing completely contradictory narratives for the exact same observable events. The magic trick doesn't work if the magicians are all telling you they did it differently.
The material brings up a really heavy, very specific example here that I think just captures this perfectly. It mentions the Minneapolis shootings that involved federal agents. Now, we don't need to get into the specific politics of it. That's a whole other show, and frankly, a timeline I'm not looking to tune into right now. But just look at the information flow around that event.
It's a textbook example of the spell breaking in real time. You had a single event, a tangible physical thing that happened in space and time, a body in the street. But you had 2 distinct, totally incompatible official narratives emerge almost simultaneously.
Okay, so on one hand,
you had an official channel, maybe a federal press release, framing the entire event as justified law enforcement action against a credible threat. It's clean, it's authoritative, it's the nothing to see here version. But then you had another official channel, perhaps local government or an independent oversight body backed by different authorities with access to the same video footage, framing it as an execution of a citizen on camera.
2 completely different realities, not just opinions, but realities. And usually in the past, one of those narratives would have won out, right? The system would kind of align itself. The nightly news would pick a lane, and they would tell us what happened.
Correct. We might grumble about it. We might disagree, but we'd eventually accept the official record.
But in this case, you have official sources openly, publicly contradicting each other. And when that happens, the listener, the viewer, the citizen, you're just left standing there thinking, wait a minute. If the people in charge can't even agree on what I just saw with my own 2 eyes, what story is actually left to hold us all together?
Precisely. The spell of a single top-down truth relies entirely on consistency. It relies on the illusion of a monolithic consensus. When that consistency evaporates, when the parents are fighting in front of the kids, so to speak, the spell shatters. It forces every single individual to become their own arbiter of truth.
Which sounds great in theory, think for yourself, but in practice, it is incredibly disorienting. If you spent your whole life outsourcing your sense-making to institutions, suddenly having to do it all yourself it's terrifying. It's like finding out you're the pilot of a plane you thought you were just a passenger on.
It's a massive cognitive load that we are simply not adapted for as a species. It causes this deep, pervasive fatigue. It causes anxiety. It forces us to constantly vet reality from the ground up every single day, and that is exhausting.
It is exhausting. It's the fatigue of having to be your own investigative journalist and your own doctor and your own financial advisor just to figure out if it's safe to, drink the water or go outside.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us perfectly to the second spell, which I think hits people even harder in their day-to-day lives because it hits their wallets.
Yeah.
The spell of scarcity and competition.
Or, as it's often known in, modern parlance, the grind culture mythology.
Rise and grind.
Right. The underlying belief here is that resources are strictly finite, and therefore we must be in a state of perpetual competition for our survival. But the core promise of this spell, the sugar that made the medicine go down for decades, was meritocracy.
The deal.
The deal. If you work hard, if you put in the effort, outcome is basically guaranteed. Effort equals reward. That's the contract.
And that is the map that definitely 100% does not match the territory anymore. You look at that grind culture rhetoric now, the no days off, the hustle porn online, and it feels like a cruel joke.
It does.
People are working harder than ever before. They have side hustles on top of their full-time jobs. They're monetizing their hobbies, and they're still falling further and further behind. The math just isn't mathing anymore.
And we see the cracks in this spell showing up in the big economic signals. If you want to see where the real belief is, look at where the money is moving. The material points to some really startling financial indicators that serve as a barometer for this loss of faith, specifically the flight into hard assets.
You're talking about gold hitting $5,000 an ounce.
And silver climbing above $100 an ounce?
Those numbers they're staggering. I mean, I remember when people thought gold at 2000 was just, doomsday prepper talk.
And they are signals. When you see those safe haven metals go vertical like that, it isn't just a market fluctuation. It's not just supply and demand in the traditional sense. It is a psychological vote of no confidence in the entire system.
Wow.
It means a critical mass of people, including very wealthy and influential people, have stopped believing the story that the currency is stable, that the system is stable. They are quietly exiting the fiat narrative and moving their wealth into physical, tangible assets. They're prepping.
It's the quiet exit. That's such a haunting phrase. But it explains so much about the mood right now. It explains why so many people feel completely burned out. And the guide frames this burnout not just as exhaustion, but as a form of grief.
Yes. Mourning. This is a vital psychological reframe. People aren't just tired, they are mourning the death of the meritocratic story. It's an incredibly painful realization to accept that the contract you were promised, work hard, get the degree, buy a house, retire safely, has been unilaterally voided.
You did your part, but the other side didn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Exactly. When housing becomes completely unreachable, even for people with good jobs who did everything right, the spell of scarcity and competition reveals itself for what it is. A game that is no longer winnable by playing by the old rules.
It's like you're playing a board game, and halfway through, someone changed all the rules but didn't tell you. And they're still taking your money every time you pass go. And you're just sitting there, moving your little piece around the board, knowing deep down that you can't possibly win.
And worse, you start to suspect that the scarcity was artificial all along, and the competition was just a tool to keep us from organizing against the house. That's a heavy, heavy realization. It dissolves the social fabric because you stop looking at your neighbor as a partner and start seeing them as a rival for the last lifeboat.
And if the economy isn't going to save us, well, the old backup plan for the last 50 years at least was always technology, right? Which brings us to spell number 3, linear progress.
Ah, yes. The great escalator.
The idea that history's an escalator that only goes up.
It's the core promise of the Enlightenment. The belief that rational materialism, science, and technology will inevitably lead to human betterment. The spell simply says, things always get better, science will save us. We are smarter and more advanced than our ancestors.
But I look around.
Oh.
I'm not so sure I feel saved by the latest software update. I feel tracked, I feel marketed to, I feel distracted. But I don't know if I feel saved.
Well, the unraveling of this particular spell comes from the dawning realization that progress now seems to create as many problems as it solves. We're seeing a massive wave of displacement. The source material here is very specific. It notes the displacement of 70,000 tech workers in the year 2025 alone, specifically due to advances in AI and automation.
Wow. And that hits close to home for so many people. Because the old script, the one we've been hearing for 20 years, was learn to code. Remember that?
Oh, yes. It was the mantra.
Learn to code, get the degree, get the white-collar job, you're set for life. That was supposed to be the golden ticket. And now that ticket is being punched by a bot.
The realization is just so stark. Progress didn't save them, it replaced them. We are finding that speed increases and efficiency increases, but wisdom does not seem to be part of the upgrade package.
We're optimizing ourselves right out of the equation.
It seems that way. So the spell of linear progress, this idea that we are always moving toward a Star Trek utopia, is breaking under the weight of the reality that we might be engineering our own obsolescence, or at least the obsolescence of our value in the current system.
It's the feeling that the future we were all promised in the sci-fi movies, the flying cars and the 4-hour work week and all the leisure time, that somehow got swamped out for algorithms that know what we want to buy before we do, and a job market that feels like a game of musical chairs where they just keep taking away more and more chairs.
It creates a crisis of meaning. If the future isn't automatically going to be better, then we suddenly have to take responsibility for what we are actually creating. We can't just trust the forward trajectory of history to handle it for us. The escalator has stopped. Now we have to actually climb the stairs ourselves.
And figure out which way is up. Which leads right into the fourth spell, and this is a big philosophical one. It's the spell of separation. The idea that we are these discrete individuals separate from each other and, crucially, separate from nature. Man versus nature. We are inside. Nature is outside. We are safe. Nature is a collection of resources for us to use.
This is perhaps the deepest and most powerful enchantment of the entire modern era. The illusion of exemption, the core belief that human beings are somehow exempt from the biological and ecological systems that govern this planet. But this spell is being aggressively, and I would say violently, dismantled by what is often called climate weirding.
Weirding is exactly the right word. It's not just warming anymore. It's weird. It's unpredictable. The notes here bring up the January 2026 winter storm as a prime example.
A truly significant event. This wasn't just a blizzard. This storm stretched for 2,000 miles. It directly affected over 200 million people. It shut down federal offices. It grounded all air travel. It broke infrastructure across dozens of states.
And the key point here isn't just that it snowed a lot. It's the scale. It's the reach. It's the interconnected failure.
Exactly. This wasn't a freak once-in-a-century anomaly anymore. The data strongly suggests this is the new baseline. When a storm of that size and complexity hits, the illusion that you are separate from nature, that you can just close your door, turn up your thermostat, and ignore the outside world, it just vanishes in an instant.
It makes you feel incredibly small. And it makes you realize that our connection to nature isn't some, hippy-dippy, let's go hug some trees concept. It's a survival imperative. And right now, that connection doesn't feel like a cozy community. It feels like exposure.
That is a profound distinction. Connection as exposure. We are being forced to realize that our fates are completely entangled. If the power grid goes down 1,000 miles away from you, it affects you. If the supply chain breaks on another continent, your grocery store shelves are empty a week later. The spell of separation, I am alone and independent and safe inside my walls, is proving to be a biological and logistical impossibility. The membrane between civilization and nature is much, much thinner than we ever allowed ourselves to believe.
Okay, so just to recap, we've got our institutions failing, the economy failing, our belief in progress failing, and nature is basically screaming at us. But there's one more spell, and this is the one that really bends the brain. Spell number 5. The single timeline illusion.
This is the most abstract, yet it might be the most disruptive spell of them all. It's the fundamental assumption that there is one shared reality, one world that we all live in together, perceiving the same events in roughly the same way.
And I think anyone who has been to a family Thanksgiving dinner in the last, say, 5 years knows this spell is absolutely unequivocally dead.
Completely dead. Shared reality is now a contested concept. It's not a given. Our information ecosystems have diverged so radically that they are no longer just supporting different opinions about the same world. They are creating different informational universes entirely.
The outline lists this out, and it's actually kind of terrifying when you see it written down so clearly. It says that right now, simultaneously, you have people who are living in a timeline where democracy is actively collapsing.
Yes.
Right next door to them, someone is living in a timeline where they are part of a heroic authoritarian resistance movement. Someone else is in a timeline where everything is basically fine and people are just overreacting.
Yeah.
And then you've got another person who is experiencing a timeline where a global spiritual awakening is accelerating.
And the critical point to understand is that these aren't just conflicting beliefs or opinions. These people are consuming completely different data, seeing different evidence, receiving different validation loops from their communities. They are experientially, phenomenologically, living in different worlds.
It's the multiverse, but without the cool portals and the fun costumes. It's just us yelling at each other across an invisible void.
The spell that there is one reality that we all share has shattered into a million pieces. And this leads to that profound, gut-wrenching sense of isolation, because you can be standing physically next to someone you love, but metaphysically you are light years apart.
So we have these 5 broken spells, and the result of all this is this glitchy feeling. Which brings us to the next part. Symptoms of the glitch. This is where it gets personal. It talks about reality feeling thin or even gamified.
This is where we shift from the big sociological picture to the phenomenology, how it actually feels on a personal level to live through this unraveling. When the grand narratives collapse, the human mind, which is a pattern recognition machine, starts looking for patterns elsewhere. And we're seeing a massive, anecdotally huge increase in reported synchronicities.
The 11.1 of phenomenon, seeing 3.33 on the clock, repeating numbers everywhere, and of course the big one of the Mandela effect.
Yes. Now, a skeptic or a debunker will dismiss all of these as simple cognitive biases, apophenia, confirmation bias, memory errors, and maybe that's part of it. But in the context of this Lucid Journeys exploration, we view them very differently. We frame this not as a pathology, but as evidence that the veil between the dreaming world and the waking world is becoming permeable.
It's just like when you're in a dream,
Yeah.
right? And you start to notice something is off. The clock face changes every time you look at it. The words in the book you're reading keep shifting. That's usually the trigger, the thing that makes your dreaming mind go, wait a second, am I dreaming?
Exactly. And as consensus reality loses its solidity, people start, consciously or unconsciously, treating reality as if it's malleable. We see this with phenomena like meme magic and the way the internet can collectively manifest things into existence. People are realizing that if you push on reality through focused belief, through collective attention, through viral intent, reality sometimes pushes back. It responds.
That's wild. The guide has this amazing line. People are becoming their own prophets because there is no shared mythology left. If the center cannot hold, you have no choice but to build your own center.
And that is a terrifying freedom. It's a level of personal, spiritual, and psychic responsibility that most people are never, ever trained for.
No kidding. Okay, so this is a deep dive into Lucid Journeys, which means we have to talk about the narrative lens for all of this. We have the Dreams of Philip Aisling book series. And for anyone new, this isn't just a story we're discussing. The show uses it as a kind of canon, a framework to understand these complex mechanics. In the book, the spell isn't a metaphor. It's literally the physics of the world.
Correct. The narrative of Philip Aisling serves as a perfect allegory, a kind of instruction manual for what we're discussing. Take the character of Mrs. Bishop.
Oh, Mrs. Bishop, the teacher everyone loves to hate. A true classic.
She represents the institutional authority spell perfectly. Remember, she doesn't just teach history. She polices the official narrative. When Philip aces that makeup exam, an exam she's specifically designed to be impossible, she doesn't congratulate him. She doesn't ask how he knew the answers. She immediately accuses him of cheating.
Because he went off script. He broke her reality.
He broke her reality. The system, which she embodies, cannot handle someone exceeding its expectations or operating outside its defined limitations. She has to suppress his natural gifts to maintain her sense of control. That is the dying gasp of the authority spell. It doesn't celebrate competence, it punishes it, because competence threatens the established hierarchy.
And then on the other side, we have the Draiths. In the books, they're presented as these terrifying nightmare monsters. But in this context, there's so much more than that.
The Draiths are the perfect representation of collective fear. They are described as unintegrated fragments of the psyche. And just ask yourself, when do they appear in the books? They swarm when the collective field is fragmented and chaotic.
That's such a good connection. Wow. So when the societal stories crack, the fear rises. The Draiths get loud and powerful when the spell of safety and certainty is broken.
Precisely. They are opportunists of chaos. They feed on that gap between the map and the territory. But Philip isn't helpless. He has tools, and these tools map directly onto the skills that we need to be cultivating right now. Let's talk about the prediction charm.
Right, the charm that the Oracle gives him in the market. I think a lot of readers, when they first encounter it, they think of it as like a magic 8-ball or some kind of fate lock, like, oh no, the charm turned black, I'm doomed, this terrible thing is definitely going to happen.
But that's a complete misunderstanding of its function. The episode 43 guide is very, very specific here. The prediction charm is a probability barometer, not a fate lock.
Okay, a probability barometer. So when it changes color, regarding Cynthia on that cruise ship, and spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read up to chapter 30, it's not saying she will die.
Not at all. It is indicating that a specific timeline, the one where she drowns, is becoming more likely based on Philip's current state of being. It's a feedback mechanism. It's showing him in real time what radio station he is tuned to. If he changes his state, if he can shift himself from abject panic to focused intention, the probability of that timeline actually shifts, and the charm changes color to reflect that.
That is a huge game-changing distinction.
Oh.
It's the difference between the future is happening to me and I am actively influencing the probability of which future manifests. Okay, and then there's the other tool, the Nagwagan, the dream catcher.
Yes, from chapter 17. And again, there's a common misconception that the Nagwagan is just a lucidity anchor, a simple reminder to wake up inside the dream. But experienced dream masters understand that it's actually a protective ward and a powerful amplifier.
An amplifier, what does it amplify?
It amplifies the dreamer's own power, their own signal. First, it shields Philip from Draith interference, which we can see as the external fear narratives, the endless noise of the collapsing spells. And second, it strengthens his own signal within the dream. It helps him hold his own frequency when the entire environment is trying to overwrite it with chaos.
That is exactly what we need when the 24-hour news cycle is trying to override our sanity. We need a personal amplifier for our own signal.
Indeed. We need to ward off the interference so we can actually hear ourselves think and feel and choose.
Okay, so we've broken the 5 spells, we've seen the personal symptoms, we've looked at the story archetypes from the canon. Now we need to get to the absolute core of it all. This is the aha moment, the metaphysician's teaching.
The central metaphysical insight of this entire deep dive is this. The Great Unraveling is the moment consensus reality becomes optional.
Optional? Wow. That is a heavy word. It implies a choice that we didn't even know we had.
And to understand that choice, we have to revisit the 9D reality concept, which is also known as the radio tuning metaphor from back in canon episode 42.
Let's break that down again for people who might have missed it or who just need a refresher, because honestly, it's a lot to get your head around the first time.
Imagine, if you will, that all possible timelines, the total collapse scenario, the spiritual renaissance scenario, the techno-dystopia, the slow stagnation, all of them exist simultaneously right now. They're like an infinite number of radio stations all broadcasting at the same time.
Okay.
We do not create these realities from scratch with our thoughts. They already exist as potentials. What we do is tune into them.
So reality isn't a single road that we're all forced to walk down together. It's more like a radio dial.
Yeah.
And there are thousands, maybe millions of different songs playing all at once.
Precisely. And the dial, the tuner that selects the station, that's your attention. More specifically, it's your state of being.
This is the part that changes everything for me. Because if that's true, it means that my internal state, my anxiety, my gratitude, my curiosity, my rage, it isn't just a passive reaction to the world out there. It's the tuning mechanism for the world I experience.
Yes, your state of being equals your frequency. Let's make it practical. If you are in a state of panic, doom scrolling on your phone at 2 a.m, consuming nothing but fear porn, you are actively tuning your consciousness to the collapse station.
And then what happens?
And then you will see evidence of collapse everywhere. You will attract interactions that confirm that bias. You are literally inhabiting that timeline. The algorithms feed you more of it. Your friends who are on that station call you to talk about it. Your perception actively filters out anything that contradicts that reality.
What if you can shift that state?
If you can consciously shift your state into, say, creation or gratitude or community building, you tune into the renewal station and you begin to see opportunities where you once saw threats. You start meeting people who are building the new world instead of just screaming about the old one. The external facts of the world, the raw data, might still be chaotic, but your path through them, your personal timeline shifts. You start finding the open doors instead of just staring at the crumbling walls.
So that conflict we talked about earlier, the gold bugs who are prepping for financial collapse versus the climate activists who are organizing for ecological renewal, the people yelling at each other online.
They aren't just disagreeing on facts. The core conflict isn't that one is wrong and the other is right. It's that they are attuned to completely different frequencies. They are reporting live from different radio stations. One is giving you the weather report from the Arctic Circle. The other is giving you the stock price from New York. Both reports are true within their own context, but they are mutually unintelligible.
That explains the isolation so perfectly. But it offers a way out, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The great aha moment of this whole unraveling is realizing that the biggest spell of all that's breaking is the belief that someone else is writing the story. We spent centuries believing the king or the priest or the president or the news anchor was the one writing the story for all of us. Now we're realizing the dream doesn't just collapse into nothing when the spell breaks. It becomes yours to navigate.
Man, that's incredibly empowering, but it's also a staggering amount of responsibility. It means I can't just blame the news anymore for how I feel. I have to look at what I'm choosing to tune into.
You cannot. You are the operator of the radio. And you can't really complain about the music if you refuse to change the station.
So let's make this as practical as possible. We have listeners who are feeling this unraveling right now. They're seeing the glitches. They feel the draughts of fear breathing down their necks. What do they do? The material offers 3 specific lucid practices.
The first, and maybe the most important practice to start with, is this. Validate the glitches.
Which basically means stop gaslighting yourself. Stop telling yourself you're crazy.
Exactly. You are not crazy for noticing. When you experience a weird synchronicity or a Mandela effect or just that deep intuitive hit that something is fundamentally off, treat it as an invitation to wake up.
Like Philip noticing the fish swimming down the hallway.
Yes. Or getting a sunburn from the carnival in his dream. These are not errors in your perception. They are wake-up calls. They are the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, pay attention. The script is broken. It's time to wake up. You are in a dream.
I love that reframe. Don't push the weirdness away. Lean into it. Oh, a glitch. Cool. That means I'm waking up. It transforms the fear into curiosity. Okay, what's the second practice?
Practice number 2 is a tricky one. It is. Disorientation is the practice.
Oof. That's a hard one. Nobody likes feeling disoriented. We're wired to seek solid ground.
The ego hates it. The ego wants a map. It wants certainty. But remember, the old maps are gone. The great danger right now is that in your discomfort, in that feeling of free fall, you rush to grab a new, rigid story just to avoid the void. You jump from one cult to another, or one conspiracy theory to another, or one rigid political ideology to another, just to feel certain again.
And that, you're saying, is how we create more draughts.
It creates rigid, fear-based thought forms. The real practice is to learn to sit in the uncertainty. Lucidity arrives in that moment when the dream stops making sense. You have to learn to stay aware and centered while the dream morphs and shifts around you. You stand in the heart of the chaos and say, I am here, I am watching, I am not afraid.
So you hold your center. You don't flail and grab onto the first piece of driftwood that floats by.
Correct. And that stability, that inner calm, is what enables the third and most critical practice. Conscious tuning.
Which brings us right back to the radio metaphor. And it asks the defining question of our time. Which timeline are you feeding?
This is where true agency returns. And we have to be so careful here. This is not, and I repeat, not toxic positivity. We are not saying just ignore all the bad things and pretend everything is fine.
Right. This isn't about ignoring the fire in the kitchen.
Denial helps no one. If a truck is coming at you, you move. But there is a universe of difference between responding effectively to a clear and present danger and feeding the frequency of perpetual panic. Panic locks you into the worst-case scenario timeline. It turns the prediction charm black. It actually makes the bad outcome more probable because your entire being is fixated on it.
So the action, the practice, is to consciously choose where to place your attention and your energy.
It is the fundamental mantra of the lucid dreamer. See clearly. Stay grounded. Choose consciously which signal to amplify. Every click you make, every conversation you have, every dollar you spend, every emotion you choose to indulge in. It's a vote. You are constantly, whether you know it or not, casting votes for which version of reality you wish to inhabit.
That's powerful stuff. See clearly, stay grounded, choose consciously.
It's the only way to navigate a multiverse without losing your mind.
You know, as we start to wind this down, I'm having a realization. We've been talking about this great unraveling, like it's a catastrophe, like it's the end of the world. But the way you're framing it, it almost sounds more like a graduation.
It's an initiation. The great unraveling isn't going to resolve neatly. We are not going back to normal. The spell cannot be recast once everyone knows how the magic trick is done.
The cat is out of the bag. The genie is out of the bottle.
The truth is simply bigger than the story was. The story of one world, one authority, one path was just too small for what humanity is capable of becoming. We are growing out of the container. And it's messy, yes. It's scary, absolutely. But it's a necessary part of our evolution.
We're shifting from being tuned by fear just passively letting whatever station is on the loudest play in our heads to learning how to become conscious tuners.
And that, right there, is the definition of becoming lucid.
So I want to turn this back to everyone listening right now. We've talked about the big collective spells, institutions, money, progress, separation. But the real work, the real tuning, always happens in the mirror. So here is the question for you to take with you. What spell in your personal life is breaking right now?
That is the essential question. Is it an identity you've outgrown, a relationship script that no longer functions, a career ambition that now feels completely hollow?
Just invite that question in and see if you can name the spell. Because the moment you name it, you begin the process of breaking it. You stop being just a character in the story, and you start becoming the writer.
Or better yet, the dreamer.
The dreamer, exactly. Next time, on episode 44, we're going to tackle the next logical step in all this. Which timeline are you feeding? We're going to get into the real nitty-gritty of how to navigate this new world without losing your mind.
We'll explore the practical mechanics of stabilization in a reality that feels increasingly fluid.
But for now, just take a breath, look around, glitches are there, sure, but so are you. The spell is breaking, and you're the one who gets to choose what frequency you tune into next.
Stay lucid.
We'll see you in the next timeline.